trust? This is a question that I found that God was asking me in a moment of doubt and in a moment of uncertainty. When I brought up a situation to him that I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, he asked me, "Are you willing to trust me?" And in that moment, I wanted to sit down and write out all the possible outcomes of the situation, the calculations, what in my mind logically made sense with this situation. But whenever we're talking about God, we cannot talk logically because he is supernatural, because he lives outside of human time and the world time. We cannot attach worldly expectations to God's performance or to what God does or how God shows up in our lives, because he simply lives outside of this. And it can be hard sometimes when we're caught up in thinking of how everything operates here on earth, when we get caught up thinking about the systems that we've put in place, and we often confine God and limit God to those systems that we are currently being confined and limited to. And whenever we put God in a box or whenever we limit him, we tell him, "I don't think you can do this. I don't think you can show up for me in this way. Even though you are God, I don't think you're going to be able to do this. If I can't do it, if man can't do it, I don't think you're going to be able to do it." And every single time we come to that conclusion, we tell God more and more that we trust him less and less. And so when we do that, we magnify our problems and we belittle God's word. We belittle who God is and God's character, despite the fact that we know that he knows exactly what we need, that he provides a plan for us and also provides provision. If God gave you the vision, he will take care of the bill that comes with it. There's no way God is going to tell you start that business and not bring you clients, buy that car and not help you make the payment. He will never ever set you up for failure. He will never set you up in a place to where you're not able to succeed. And if you find yourself in that place, you have to think to yourself, did God set me up here or did I set myself up here? A lot of the times we want to do things our way, or we want to make things happen in the way that we see them happening, and we completely ignore the instruction of God. And when we ignore the instruction of God, we're also playing into disobedience, because to be obedient is to submit to his will and to trust that what he has for us is better than what we have for ourselves. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you do have the business and you spend all this money on the business, but you don't have the clients, you have to think to yourself, have I been idolizing this? Have I been putting this above God? Have I been ignoring the strategies and instructions that God has been giving me and doing things my own way? When you find yourself in a horrible financial situation, sometimes that's just a season to where God is teaching you how to fully depend on him. But sometimes that's also a season of consequences, because every single time you do get more money, you feel like you need to spend it. Every single time you do get more money, you feel like instead of saving it, you need to buy this and buy that. And maybe your season of financial dependence is teaching you how to steward your finances correctly. So we have to remember that we serve a very, very strategic God, and he will never bring us to our next without teaching us, building us, pruning us, and preparing us for what he has next for us. He will never give you anything early, right? People say God is always on time, and that is true because he is always on time, but I rather have a God be quote unquote late according to human standards than to be early, because God would never give us something that he knows we're going to forfeit. And whenever you get something or you feel like God needs to give you something early, sometimes God might just answer that and give you it early to show you that you're not able to sustain it. He might give it to you early to show you that that which you wanted to be a blessing is now turning into a curse because you're not built for it. And so in that process and in that timing, we have to build, we have to work towards the end goal. We have to work towards what it is God is telling us to do. And in the midst of that, we also need to know how to take risks in life. And it's very, very hard to risk it all. It's very, very hard to risk it using your last, especially because we're in this world and we're living sometimes according to this world's systems. Sometimes it's hard for us to get out of that because we're physically born into it. And so we have to still pay bills. We have to still show up. We still have to give our taxes. And so in moments like that, where we know we have a million bills coming up and we have this that we need to do, we have that we need to do, and we only have this seed left, we only have this amount of money left, we can look to God and think, God, how is this going to get paid? How is this going to get done? Why are you asking me to take this risk and you use this little bit of money that I do have on something totally unrelated when you see that I have all these bills, that I have all these commitments that I have to do? And those moments, those dire moments where you feel like, if I give this up, if I tithe this much, if I give my whole paycheck to God, if I give my whole paycheck as an offering, I have nothing left. I have nothing to my name. And it's in those moments where we say, this better work, God better show up. And it's in trusting him and being able to move without hesitation to know that God will cover everything that you need to do. I remember one time I was in church and this woman was giving this testimony about how she was struggling with the job and struggling with finances. And she did have a job and she got a paycheck, and that God instructed her 2 weeks before she got that paycheck to give him the whole paycheck. And she said, well, the whole paycheck, I have bills, I have things I have to take care of. Like, if I give you this whole paycheck, I have nothing to my name. But God told her, give me this whole paycheck. And so she got her paycheck and she was disobedient, and she only gave him half of the paycheck because she was worried about how all these other things were going to get taken care of. And so then God told her again, for your next paycheck, you need to give me the whole paycheck. And so for her next paycheck, she gave him the whole paycheck. And in that same week of her being obedient, she got checks in the mail. She got a job opportunity. She got people offering to pay her. Every single thing was taken care of. And that could have happened sooner for her if she had given the first paycheck, but God knew that was going to happen, and that had to happen in order to show her this is what happens when you release the little that you do have. There's a Bible story about how Jesus was teaching about offerings and tithing. And people were tithing so much money and giving all that they had and giving this and giving that. And they were already rich, so whatever they were tithing was really pennies to them. But a woman came and she gave something, I think somewhere around 36 cents today to Jesus, right? And, people were looking at her like, well, this is all you're giving? This is all you're giving? And she goes, that's all that I have. And Jesus said that she is more blessed than everybody else who gave, because she gave the last that she had. And that is what true trust and true dependency on God looks like. She had 36 cents left. And while everybody else was looking around thinking, well, 36 cents is not worthy enough, 36 cents is not enough, it wasn't even the money that she had given him. It was the posture of her heart. It was the intention behind that giving. To them, 36 cents was nothing. To her, that was all that she had left. And she still saw God worthy enough to have her last and to trust him with whatever else she had coming up. And so I say all this to say, if there's a risk that he's telling you to take, if it's your last, if you've been stripped of absolutely everything and you have no clue where to go from here, what to do from here, you have no clue what God is going to do in your life, how he's going to do it, I just urge you to trust him. Trust that he will take care of it. Trust that if he's asking you to give this up, he's willing to give you something way better than what you lost. We asked God for a rose, and he has a whole wall and a whole bouquet of roses waiting for us. But we have no clue what he has in store for us when we're not taking heed, when we're not listening, when we're not being obedient, and most of all, when we're not submitting to God's will. We have no clue what he has for us because we're so busy and so worried looking at the little that we do have, looking at all the bills that are stacked up. But that means nothing to God if he doesn't have your obedience. That means nothing to God if you can't depend on him. I think of a child and a parent and how children will have, a school field trip coming up, and then they have to pay for pizza every Wednesday, and then they have to pay for scholastics, and then they have to pay for a performance, and they have all these things, right? And in real life, it will really amount to be like maybe $70 with all the things they have to pay for. But to a child, that is a bunch of money. That is a lot of money. And they want to do all of these things. They need to do all of these things to be included, to be in school. They have no clue how any of these things are going to get paid. And the child goes to the parent, right? And in the child's mind, they're not thinking, how is this going to get paid? I'm going to have to sell a lemonade stand. I'm going to have to sell my bike. I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to sell candy at school in order to make this money up because I don't think my parent's going to come through. No child thinks like that. Absolutely no child thinks like that. When they go to their parent and they ask their parent for the money, they trust their parent will take care of it. Their parent might pay on the exact due date and the exact deadline of when they need to pay, but at least it's still going to get paid. Their parent might pay on that day, their parent might pay in the middle, their parent might pay early, but the child is not thinking about that. The child goes in full trust and in full dependency to their parent, trusting and believing that their parent will take care of what it is that they need them to take care of. Their child is not trying to find ways to be in control and put it in their own hands. Their child isn't already making up their mind that they're going to lose or miss out or lack. Their child knows that no matter, even if this child comes from the poorest family, their parents always make a way. And so if our human parents who have so little in comparison to God can make a way for their child every single time, what in the world makes you think that God can't make a way for you too? What in the world makes you think that God will decide that he's going to allow you to fall today, or he's going to allow your foot to slip, when he really says he will never allow the righteous's foot to slip or for them to be looked upon with shame? And so it's so important for us to really, really trust God. And trusting God looks like giving him your last. Trusting God looks like giving up, right? And surrendering control and being like, you know what? If you do it, you do it. If it doesn't get done, it wasn't meant to get done. But one way or another, God will have his way. He will always have his way. And so it would be much simpler. It would be such a lesser burden on us if we would just give it to him from the very beginning. If we would just give him our trust, our yes, our okay, our obedience from the very beginning, and trust that everything will be taken care of.